The real Goldilocks. She broke in for revenge, not Porridge. They called her Goldilocks because that's all they saw. Those long, glimmering curls that caught the light like spun sunlight. But what they didn't see was the scar under her left ear, or the way her fingers trembled every time someone mentioned the woods. They never noticed the way she flinched at the smell of cinnamon porridge, or how she avoided cottages with smoke curling sweetly from the chimney. Goldilocks wasn't her name, it wasn't even close. But it was the name the village gave her after the day she disappeared and came back different, changed, empty-eyed and quiet, like her soul had been dragged through a nightmare with no exit. The story they tell is simple. A curious little girl wandered into the forest, found a cozy little house, broke in, tasted 3 bowls of porridge, broke 3 chairs, napped in 3 beds, and ran off when the bears came home. Cute, funny, harmless. But that's not what happened. That's not even close to what happened. Because the truth is, she didn't wander in. She went back. On purpose. Not for porridge, not for furniture, not for sleep. She broke into that house for one reason only: revenge. 3 years before that day, she watched her sister vanish into those same woods. Everyone said it was wolves, or the cold, or maybe just fairies. But she knew better. Her sister had followed a trail, breadcrumbs dropped like bait. And the trail led straight to a cottage that no one talked about. A cottage that only appeared when the forest wanted it to appear. A place that didn't exist on any map, but lived in the shadows like a secret with teeth. Goldilocks, her real name was Leora, had followed her sister's footprints once. Just once. And she never forgot what she saw. The house was beautiful, almost too beautiful. White stone walls, blue roof tiles that shimmered like lake water, flowers in the window, lace curtains, everything perfect, everything wrong, because it wasn't empty. The people inside, if you could even call them people, looked like a family, a father, big and broad with eyes too black to be kind, a mother graceful but cold, her skin pale like wax, and a boy. The boy was the worst, always smiling, always humming, always sharpening a knife he never used for food. Leora remembered watching from the trees, unseen, remembered how they closed the door behind her sister, and how her sister never came out. The villagers searched. They found nothing, no footprints, no house, just woods and silence. Leora tried to tell them what she'd seen, but they called it grief. They said the mind makes up stories when the heart can't take the truth. So she waited, grew, trained, learned how to track, how to move silent, how to fight with fists, with blades, with words. She stopped wearing bright dresses. She stopped smiling. She stopped being a child. Until one day the forest opened again, and the cottage came back. It was always the same, mid-autumn, the trees glowing with fire, the wind cold enough to whisper secrets. That's when the cottage reappeared, and this time, Leora was ready. She wore the golden wig like a mask, a trick, because they liked innocence. They fed off it. So she gave them what they wanted. She walked straight through the trees, right up to the door, and knocked. No answer. She knocked again. Still nothing. Then she smiled, and kicked the door in. The smell hit her first. Porridge, sweet, familiar, poison. The chairs were in place, the beds, untouched, everything perfect. A stage, a trap. But she wasn't scared. She'd been preparing for this her entire life. Every step through that house was calculated. She didn't taste the porridge. She tested it. Didn't sit in the chairs. She flipped them over. Didn't lie in the bed. She tore the mattresses open, searching for signs, clues, blood, bones. What she found was worse. A bacon. There was no bacon the last time. All you needed was that she hadn't been ready enough to look. Now she was. The trap door was hidden beneath the road. Locked. But last time nothing was found in the village 3 years, the man who told her 3 years, the world. She picked out what had in her second in the back. The hair changed. Damp. Cold. Silent. No peaks. No clouds. It's kind of like the way she was. She was quiet. She was quiet. She was quiet.
her shoulder into the woman's chest, slamming her back into the iron stove. Then, without hesitation, she jammed the broken handle of a fire poker into the woman's stomach and twisted.
Mama gasped, eyes wide, arms reaching.
But Leora leaned in close.
This is for every girl you call dinner. And let her fall. The basement You were the only one who ever got away. And now you've come back? That's poetic. She didn't move. He lunged. She was faster. Steel met steel. His blade was real this time, sharp and stained with rust. He swung high, then low. She dodged, parried, cut his arm. He shrieked, spun away, but she followed. No fear, no mercy, just momentum. She threw him against the wall. He scrambled to his feet. You're ruining the story, he spat. She stalked forward. This was never your story. He tried to run. She threw her blade. It pinned him to the wooden post behind him, through the shoulder. He screamed, twisted, but couldn't move. She walked up to him, stared into those wide, wicked eyes. No more porridge. No more games. No more girls. And then she reached up and pulled the last cord, the gas line, sparked her match, walked away. This time the fire wouldn't leave anything standing. Smoke reached the village before she did, thick columns rising from the woods like the sky was being pulled down by black hands. They watched it from their windows, squinting, whispering, crossing themselves like smoke was an omen and not a signal. No one moved to help. No one gathered water. Because the village never helped what it couldn't understand, and they hadn't understood the forest in a long time. They told their children to stay away, but they never told them why. Now they just stood still, pretending not to know what had been buried there for years. But deep down, in the corners of their minds, they didn't admit existed. They knew. The forest had finally opened its mouth, and it was screaming.
Leora walked back into town covered in soot, blood dried on her hands, a girl slung over her back like she was carrying the weight of the world, her face unreadable, her boots soaked with mud and ash. She didn't say a word as she passed the baker, the butcher, the tavern owner with the fake smile. They stared but didn't speak. She didn't stop until she reached the square, right in front of the well where they used to tell stories about fairies and wolves and little girls with golden curls. And then Calla stirred. The villagers gasped, because Calla had been gone for years, buried in their minds, another name whispered in grief and forgotten in silence. But now she was there, alive, blinking against the light like someone pulled from a grave. She looked around, dazed. Then she said one word. Leora. Leora lowered her gently, brushed her hair back, then turned to the crowd. You left us. No one replied. She raised her voice, not loud, but sharp, like a blade pressed against truth. You left all of us. You said it was wolves, said it was magic, said we imagined it. But I saw them. I fought them. I burned their house to the ground. Still silence. Then the priest stepped forward. He tried to smile. Child, you've been through something traumatic. Let's not stir fear with fairy tales. She threw the blade at his feet. It was still wet. The crowd recoiled. Leora looked each of them in the eye. They took girls, one by one, every year. You knew. You heard the stories, but it was easier to forget, easier to call them liars, easier to say they ran away. But I found them. I found her, and I'm not asking you to believe me. She turned, grabbed Calla's hand. I'm warning you. She walked away. No applause, no thank you, just heavy silence. But that night, the dreams came. The villagers saw fire in their sleep, heard footsteps in the trees, heard laughter that turned to screaming, and in every nightmare they saw the same thing, a door, half open, and a bowl of porridge going cold, and a voice whispering, too hot, too cold, just right. Then came the claw marks on the chapel door, the deep footprints by the well, a cradle left empty in the middle of the square. The village finally started to listen. But it was too late. The forest had changed. It didn't forget, and it didn't forgive. Because houses burn, yes, but stories, they echo. And when they come back, they're sharper, hungrier. Leora didn't stay. She and Calla disappeared into the mountains, left behind the place that had once called them cursed and now begged them to return. They didn't look back. They didn't need to. The job wasn't over, but the worst of it was buried. For now. But in a house in a faraway town, a little girl stirred in her sleep and heard someone walking in the attic, someone humming. They never told the real story. They couldn't. The village rewrote it, the way people always do when the truth tastes too much like shame. They turned it into a fairy tale again. Said a little girl wandered into the woods, found a house that didn't belong to her, broke some things, and ran away scared. They never said what she found. Never said what she fought. They scrubbed the blood from the legend, rinsed the fire from their memories, and buried the names of the girls who never came back. Easier that way, neater, but not true. Because the house had a name, and so did every girl it tried to swallow. Leora didn't care about the story they told. She didn't come back to correct them. She didn't show up at council meetings with evidence or stand in church pews asking for grace. She let them believe what they wanted. Let them lock their doors and whisper her name like a warning. Let them tell their children to avoid the woods, not because of what was in them, but because of who came out. She didn't want their pity or their fear. She wanted silence, and she got it. She stayed with Calla in the mountains, built a life with her own hands, learned how to smile again, little by little, though the smile never reached her eyes.
She still flinched at the smell of porridge, still slept with a blade under her pillow, still watched the tree line every morning, waiting for something she couldn't name. Because she knew the house was only the beginning. There were others. She'd seen the names in the floorboards, scratched deep in the wood where no child's hand should have reached. She remembered them all, wrote them down. And when the snow fell heavy enough to quiet the world, she packed her things again, kissed Calla's forehead, and left, not because she wanted revenge, but because she owed it. There was a time when she thought justice was fire, that all you had to do was burn something ugly enough and it would stop existing. But now she understood. Fire doesn't erase monsters. It just shows you where they've been hiding. And so the girl with the golden hair, fake, now stained with ash and truth, walked into new forests, found new doors, kicked them in, and told every one of them the same thing. I'm not lost. I'm here for you. And maybe you're thinking, Uncle Luke, that's just a story. Just a twist on an old tale, right? But let me ask you something, nephew. Why do you think they made the fairy tale so harmless in the first place? Why turn a rescue into a break-in? A hunter into a trespasser? A legend into a lie? Because people don't like the idea of a girl saving herself. They don't like the idea of the victim being the one who burned the house down. But me? I love that kind of ending. So if this story shook you, if you're still thinking about that house in the woods and the girl who didn't run this time, then do me one favor. Like the video, comment what you would have done, and hit that subscribe button, because the next story's even darker, and next time the girl might not knock before she kicks the door in. This is Uncle Luke, and I'll see you in the next tale.